Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the League of 72 live. If you're watching for the very first time, every single Thursday, 4 p.m, I'll be here, possibly with a green tea. We might try something else as well as the season progresses, and we're going to be chatting all things EFL. We've got an absolutely jam-packed show today with some cracking guests who are going to be talking about, of course, League One and League Two. We've got Ed Walker, who's an expert in that field, but an Albion fan as well, so he's loving life at the moment. So we're going to be talking about the transfer window and the general themes around after the first 5 games in both those divisions. We're going to be chatting to Ben HD, one of the best. I was going to say one of the best, the best Championship YouTuber out there. Delighted to chat to him in just a second about the transfer window as well, and trying to figure out who has won the transfer window. Look at some of the big deadline day deals. You might have missed some of those. Try and say that 3 times. Deadline day deal. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. I just said deadline day deal 3 times and got away with it. Life is good. And of course, we've got, I don't know if you've seen it all over Twitter, and if you've subscribed, you'll be seeing on the channel very, very soon. I spoke to Danny Wilson about Harry Maguire. He was the man who gave him his opportunity at Sheffield United way back when. And he reveals why Harry Maguire took that penalty, and he knew that he was going to do it. We'll be giving you a sneak peek, chatting about that later on in this show. So you want to stick around for all of those bits and pieces. But we've got so much to get through that I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to invite my first guest. I spoke about him just a second ago. I honestly think he is the best when it comes to the Championship. And he's my kind of fan as well. Preston North End fan. Ben HD joins me right now on the League of 72 live. It is a joy. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me on. What an intro. What an intro.
That's what I believe, mate. I believe what I say. By the way, of course, Ben's going to be giving his opinions. We want to get your opinions, right? So if you're watching live in the chat, we're going to be doing this every week from now on. We want to get you guys involved in the show a lot more. Here's the question. In the Championship, who won the transfer window? Get involved in the chat. We are going to be reading out, and I'll put them to Ben a little bit later on in the show. But get involved now. Have a nice little debate there, and we'll read out some of the best ones. Let's get into this then. Straight away with the deadline day signings, which all being well, we can see them in front of us. It might take a minute for everyone to get through them all. I think what's interesting with all of these in every division, Ben, is that column on the right-hand side, fee. There's not a huge amount of money being splashed about at the moment. Lots of loans, lots of free transfers. But we spoke about it last week on the show. We put together an 11 that you could look at of players that were sort of still free agents. You cover it with your transfer rumor videos, each week. So many sort of loan signings. I've actually found it one of the most interesting transfer windows that we've had in a long time. How have you found it as someone who covers it?
I think the same for me, really. There was that little bit of a worry sort of early on that because there's not going to be all too much money floated around in the Championship, that it might be a little bit of a quiet window. But as soon as a couple of weeks went by, the deals really started to roll in. And, really with the sort of exception of maybe like Fulham at the top of the Championship, teams have had to get quite creative with the sort of deals that they've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at some of these players then, because we picked out 3 and there are loads more, and we'll be doing the same in League One and League Two. So again, if you're wanting to find out on some new players that have just joined the EFL, then, this is the live show for you. So stick with us. We're going to kick off with, we've got a couple of Watford strikers who made moves on deadline day. This was the biggest one, wasn't it? Troy Deeney making his way to Birmingham. First of all, in terms of kind of the sentimental element of it, it's wonderful, isn't it? He's got a crest of the tattoo on his leg. He's always said that he's a Birmingham fan. But on the pitch, I'm less enthused about this. But then I'm sure there'll be Birmingham fans who will disagree with me. And it might be down to the style of play. I'll give you my thoughts on it in a second. But I'd love to know where you're at with this. Because, yes, Troy Deeney is a leader. He's a good hold-up man. But is he what Birmingham need?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I think that originally I did sort of share those same thoughts, but the more I've been thinking about it, the more I'm sort of coming around on this deal, mostly because I think that Deeney's arrival will sort of lessen the burden and their reliance on Lucas Djukovic, who he himself is getting on a little bit. I think that originally the plan was to sort of bring in Sam Cosgrove to do that role, but that move didn't really work out. He was then sent out on loan. So the sentimental value of this transfer aside, I can sort of see the logic with where they're coming from. Although Deeney, of course, isn't maybe that player he once was, he's still got a bit to give this Birmingham side.
Yeah, I think there's elements of this. It's a bit like Charlie Austin. And I don't say that because I'm a QPR fan. I say it as is he's that kind of, he can be that kind of lightning rod for the rest of the team where he'll go and do the interviews, he'll make those statements, he'll say these are the standards, and it can galvanize a lot of the players. And we're going to be talking about Birmingham a little bit later on in terms of their style of play. The thing that changes my mind on Deeney somewhat, because when I look at the stats last year, 17 games last year, I think he scored 7 goals. It might have been 8 goals, but only 1 goal wasn't a penalty. So I think that's slightly alarming. But what I would say is that the way the Birmingham are playing, they want to get balls into the box, don't they? They want to have the likes of Jukovic, the likes of Deeney in there muscling about with those centre-backs, getting a yard and scoring a goal that way. So from that point of view, I just think it's even more of a statement of intent of how Lee Bowyer is going to set up his team, I think. Time will tell, won't it? But he's going to be there for a little while now. It's one where he's going to give his all. So I think Birmingham fans are right to be excited about it. Don't let me dampen your mood. Let's move on to another Watford striker who it's come to my team, QPR. Oh, Ben, come on. It's happening, isn't it? Surely. I mean, Queen's Park Rangers third in the league with just 3 spots off Arsenal at the moment. I think we'll catch him up in the next couple of weeks. It's exciting. But Andre Gray was signed on deadline day. And he's played under Mark Warburton before in 2014, had a full season when they were at Brentford together, 17 goals, went to Burnley, did well there as well. The question I've got, because I think we know what he will sort of add, and I'm really excited about our attacking options. It's something that a couple of years ago we just really didn't have, but we've gently just sort of developed a really, really nice squad. And I remember chatting to you a couple of years ago. I think it might have been the last game of 2 seasons ago, and I thought we were both kind of a very sort of middling team. And I think QPR played West Brom that day, and I knew Eze was going, I knew Hugo was going, I knew all these players were going, and I was a bit scared. My question to you is that we've now got Austin, who is that sort of poacher. We've got Lyndon Dykes, who's in great form and is a bit more of a hold-up man, I guess. Works hard for the team as well, but ultimately a hold-up man. You've then got Gray, who can kind of burst in behind. He's got that bit more pace. But the way that we play, and a lot of teams play with 3 at the back. We were looking into it. I think 14 teams have played 3 at the back in the Championship this year, which is not what we're kind of used to seeing over the years. But if you've got 5 spots, if we play 3-4-3, you've got 3 spots and you can only play one of those 3 strikers and Chrissy Willock and Ilias Chair. So Gray coming in, do you think Gray jumps the queue of those other 2, or do you think he's just a backup striker for QPR?
I think it's an interesting one, and I think that this will sort of depend on the game and how Warburton's going to look to set you up, because one thing that I do give Warburton a lot of credit for generally is I think he's very good at making those little tweaks within a game. I think we saw that with your 2-2 draw against Barnsley. The first half hadn't quite gone to plan, and he wasted no time with making those changes, getting those subs on, and he completely changed the momentum of that game going into the second half. So I think that Mark Warburton, with options and an array of different options of what he can do going forward, I think makes you unpredictable, and I think that's only a benefit really. Whether he jumps the queue straight away, I'm not so sure, because I've liked the look of Dykes and Austin at times this season, but it gives you options. And I mean, yeah, I'm scared of QPR this season. That's not something that I've said for a while.
Yeah, it's certainly not something I've heard for a while, but it's lovely to hear. It is really lovely to hear. And another one final player we did want to touch on is Shea Ojo going to Millwall here. We saw him last year do brilliantly. 12 goal contribution last season for Cardiff, 5 goals and 7 assists. You can see some of his best bits here. There was a lot of goals like this for Cardiff at the back end of last season, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I think that Millwall fans will be quite excited about in this.
Yeah, for sure. I think what's interesting as well from these, when I think of Shea Ojo, I think of him as that out-and-out winger, kind of get to the byline, get crosses in, then you see Kiefer Moore kind of go in. But what you see with some of these is, yes, he can offer some goals here, but he can also go both ways. He can go into sort of more central areas, because that's the thing I was wondering was, like, what does this mean for Jed Wallace's role? Again, this is another back 3 with Millwall. You got Malone, you got Romeo on the other side at times. Like, will this lead to them playing with a back 4 to sort of facilitate someone like Shea Oju? Where do you see him playing with the likes of Jed Wallace and Afobe?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I sort of think that Millwall are so like regimented with that back three now that they'll probably be set in their ways and sticking to that. But Ojo definitely gives them a bit of a different dynamic going forward. And I think that this has probably been Millwall's issue in the last couple of seasons, really. You knew they were always going to be defensively solid, but at times it felt like sort of Jed Wallace was doing all the work on his own. And they have looked to address that now. You know, Afobe's come in and he's got a couple of goals so far. And Ojo maybe just gives them that bit more of a different dynamic. And I think that if he's able to sort of play off the front with Afobe and stretch the line going in behind, we may then see Jed Wallace dropping a little bit deeper into that creative role, which is sort of the role that they've been looking to fill over these last couple of years. So yeah, Wallace's role in the team could slightly change with this arrival, which will be an interesting one to watch over the next few weeks.
Absolutely. So let us know in the chat sort of players that you're really excited about for your team. And as we said, who has won the window? We're going to talk about it now for a second, but we want to know what you guys think. We've got a few nominees here. Maybe we'll put it to a vote as well. But if there's someone else, if you can put forward an argument, make sure you get involved in the chat. So I don't want to come straight back to my team, but look, we've done this. I think it's my fourth show, maybe, right? And we haven't spoken about my beloved QPR that much. Okay, 5 games in, we're third in the league. All right, so just let me have this moment, because by the time we get to November, it might be over. In terms of the entirety of the window, like there are some teams that kind of make moves quickly, but we sort of gently. I'm really excited. I've got to say, I was chatting to a guy on the train who kind of sort of spotted me, and he's like, "I'm a QPR fan." Started chatting. And he was like, "God, it's exciting, isn't it?" And he was like, "Oh, I've got a season ticket. I had to get a season ticket because it feels like something's kind of happening here." And a big part of that were those 4 loan signings last year and being able to kind of retain them and us kind of build on the squad. We've got the likes of Dazelles come in, who hasn't totally hit the ground running just yet, if I'm honest. Johansson looks wonderful for us. Charlie, as we've spoken about. Moses Adebayo, who's an interesting Moses Adebayo, because I think if he goes to other clubs and they're struggling, you'll go, why have we signed him? But because he's kind of hit the ground running with us. Jimmy Dunn, Andre Gray, Geordie Device, and Sam McCallum. I feel like it's up for grabs, isn't it, the championship this year, apart from maybe those top 2, which we're going to discuss in a second. But of the best of the rest, where do you put QPR kind of up there now because of this window?
I definitely have QPR up there as sort of like you say, one of the best of the rest at the moment. We sort of spoke about before, a lot of clubs relying on sort of like free transfers and loans and things like that. But I think that with the recruitment that you guys have done this season, it's been a nice sort of mix of everything, really. A couple of quality players have come in on loan. You've used the free transfer market quite well, and a couple of transfer fees have been paid out here and there. You've got players who are just going to come in and be instant quality, like Johansson in the midfield and Charlie Austin up front as well. But there's also some of them younger players who are coming through at the moment who you'll look to, carry on developing over the next few years, and they'll be sort of a saleable asset in a year or 2 or something like that. So there seems to be a nice balance with QPR at the moment. That's the best way I can sort of describe it. And I don't think it's just you that's getting carried away at the moment. I am quite excited about your chances this year.
That's good, because I'm very aware of sort of trying to crowbar QPR into absolutely every line. but I feel like on this occasion they're a fair nominee. Guys, let us know in the chat how you feel about it. Birmingham is the second nominee. I said that in my predictions kind of before the season started. I'd be interested to know where you put Birmingham. I kind of had a feeling about them. I did think they were sort of Chuck Sanike coming in was a good sign. Ryan Woods, when I saw that, I thought, oh, I like that. And now the likes of Troy Deeney coming in as well, a few loans, and Chong, I think, is probably could be one of the signings of the summer if it all comes together. This is just an excuse basically to show Styles is gold. It's an absolute screamer in the 1-1 draw between Barnsley and Birmingham at the week. But yeah, they for where they were and what the feeling was around the club, for them now to have Djukovic, who's got better season on season, Hogan and Deeney, and Jordan Graham as well. They've had a great window, haven't they?
Yeah, once again, I feel like this is definitely the best window that Birmingham have had in quite some time now. At the start of every season, I'm always a little bit cautious with predicting Birmingham too high, because there always seems to be a bit of optimism, in and around the start of the season, and then something crazy will happen during the season and stuff like that. But things seem to be a little bit more settled now. I really like the work that Lee Bowyer's doing there at the moment as well. They've got different options now and a lot more squad depth with those options that have come in. And, like we briefly sort of mentioned before, Chong has been a really exciting player to watch so far this season. I think the Birmingham fans will be hoping there's no sort of recall option there for Man United because, I really think he'll be quite special for them this year.
Yeah, you'd hope that Man United are kind of stacked enough. No, I heard Donny
You
Van
know,
Beek.
well, you never know.
He
Him and
didn't make that
Ronaldo up
move
front.
to Everton in the end. If he got to Everton, maybe something might have happened, but not to be. And the final option nominee that we were thinking of putting forward, West Brom. And the reason to put West Brom forward is because they haven't spent a penny. I think that's the thing that I'm surprised by. And if you've got decent championship performers, they had a tasty game against Peterborough. Knocking us out of second position. That's the last time I'll mention this, I promise. With Ajayi scoring a last-minute goal, and it kicked off a little bit with Valerian Ishmael. Sorry, I'm getting his name. Darren Ferguson and West Brom's manager here. They didn't like each other by the end of it. Nice little tasty little rivalry there. But Mowat coming in, Adam Reach coming in, Malumbi coming in, Matt Clark coming in, and Jordan Hugel, who some people weren't sure about, but I think for the championship is a very steady player, especially for how West Brom want to play. For them not to spend much money on any of those guys, it allows them to kind of retain the good squad that they've got, especially because they sold Pereira, but also kind of not push the boat out too far. So I put them forward as a nominee. Would you agree with that one?
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. And, on another day, if they'd gone out and spent like the 6 million that Alex Moat's probably worth, people will look at that from the outside looking in and go, oh, they've been quite ambitious there. But he's arguably been the signing of the season there, picking him up on a free transfer. I quite like the addition of Jordan Hugel, really. He's sort of being typecast as that at the moment as that sort of backup option that like promoted clubs are bringing in to sort of do a job for them. But with that style of play, he will sort of fit into that sort of Daryl DK mould that Ishmael had at Barnsley last season as that bit of a destroyer. And he does give them something a little bit different than the sort of Callum Robinsons and the Colin Grants that they've got going forward at the moment. And as well as that, keeping Sam Johnson, I think is also a massive thing for their season. How good he was for them in the Premier League last season. To get him tied down for another season in the Championship is only good news for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you now. So we've had who won the window. Who lost the window? Who's had an absolute stinker?
I mean, before deadline day, I probably would have put my side North End there, to be honest with you. But I think we just about managed to salvage things.
We had them in the script.
Yeah, we just about managed to salvage things with some of the business that we did on deadline day. So I won't put us forward. I think that the team that a lot of people are looking at the moment with how sort of hectic stuff was on deadline day was probably Swansea. Steve Cooper set the bar very high for them in their past couple of seasons, making the playoffs. And it's going to be a bit of a process this season for them to sort of come to their new style of play now. To lose Connor Roberts and Jamal Lowe late on wasn't ideal, especially for the fees they got for them in the end. I think just over 2 million for Roberts, who was arguably one of the best fullbacks in the Championship last season, if not the best. I do also think that they picked up some nice additions on deadline day. Obafemi, there were quite a few Championship clubs chasing him. I think that Preston Blackburn were also interested, but Swansea got that deal over the line in the end. It's just going to be a bit of a process now under Russell Martin, and I think that the Swansea fans are sort of happy with being a little bit patient with this because it is going to take time.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with their style of play as well. That patience is going to be really important. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way that Swansea have played for, well over 10, 15 years now. But I think you're right. For me, I've got them right down there just because I always think at the start of the window, you go, what's my best team? How many am I going to keep? And if I'm going to lose any, how many great players am I going to bring in that I'm not going to be bothered that I've lost them? To lose Woodman, to lose Gay, to lose Ayew, to lose Jamal Lowe, to use Roberts, to lose all of those guys is a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get on and how they maneuver that with Russell Martin, because they have got a very interesting style of play, which we're going to talk about pretty much now. Let's have a look at the weekend results from last weekend, because of course everyone goes into the international break and then has to deal with all of that. One that we did want to kind of touch on, because they're flying very, very high. If we then move on to the league table, it's Huddersfield Town, 4-0 victors, and are now fourth in the league. Have won the last three. And we did want to just touch on them, because what's interesting here is that I'm intrigued to see how they they carry this forward. In that game, that 4-0 victory against Reading, they only had a marginal advantage when it came to possession, 52%. But what was impressive that they created 4 big chances compared to Reading's 1, which might be down to Reading as well, and scored 4 goals in this match. Sorba Thomas has to be mentioned here. He was absolutely fantastic. For him to move from Boreham Wood and do as well as he has, he's playing on the right as a right wing back. He made 4 key passes, got himself a goal, 2 assists, I think it was as well in this, and he's leading the way in the assist charts. Sorba Thomas he's been outrageous for them, isn't he, Ben?
Yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic. Preston played Huddersfield a couple of weeks ago. I went down to that one. It wasn't the best game in terms of quality, but the one play that definitely caught my eye was Sorba Thomas. Really exciting player, and I think that he's the sort of one that Huddersfield fans are pinning their hopes on this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at some. One caught a clear theme after 5 games for me watching the Championship this year is that there's of those top 2, it feels like it's exactly what we thought was going to happen, Fulham and West Brom. What's so fascinating is that these teams play so differently. The Baggies are averaging the most shots at goal per game with 17. Fulham have got the most possession with 57%. Third highest possession. So you've got a team that keeps the ball the whole time. You've got a team that doesn't really want the ball that often. West Brom have got the shortest sequence, 3.6 seconds. But I think the thing with those two is that there's such quality from both of those and with the coaching of those two. In terms of surprise packages, the likes of Coventry and Birmingham are 2 of those kind of more direct sides. Coventry have had the second most shots per 90 in the entire league, 16.6. I think maybe that's probably the difference, is that they've only scored 5 goals, and that's maybe why they will end up mid-table despite being that little bit more direct than the other teams, because playing direct seems to work quite well at the moment. And Birmingham, I thought this was really interesting. They've got 1.4 goals per game, 2.6 big chances per 90. They're playing very, very direct at the moment. They've got the second lowest possession this season, 40%. But they're 6th for most shots. So like we were saying with Troy Deeney and Jukovic, they're going to get the ball up there. They're going to be direct. They're going to hurt the opposition. On the other side of it, we were talking about Fulham and West Brom being very different. There are teething problems for a couple of teams here. Swansea and Sheffield United. Sorry, Swansea City fans, if you're getting annoyed at us after today. It's probably you're not having a good time. But look, you need people to prove wrong in life. But possession isn't everything this season. There's a lot of those direct teams, I would say. The likes of Cardiff, Middlesbrough. We've spoken about Coventry and Birmingham. But on the other side of it, Swansea and Sheffield United both have got average possession of 62.5%. They're the only clubs with over 60%. But it doesn't seem to be the be-all and end-all. Swansea in particular, we're going to show you a clip here. That sort of it's overplaying. It's one of those where the hipster will go, you let them play. But then when you're supporting that team, sometimes you're like, just kick it away. What do you think about Swansea? You've got to kind of keep calm with them, right? Because it will be a process, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I do quite like Russell Martin. I think he speaks quite well in interviews, and you can tell that there's definitely something there for him to really go on in management. But Preston played Swansea the other week at Deepdale, and there was a bit of a frustrating feel about them, really. The first 20 minutes they played it around quite well, but in the final third, there just doesn't seem to be that little bit of ingenuity. Last season, I think they got away with it a little bit because their underlying numbers for creativity weren't great then, but they had someone like an AU to just come up with one moment of magic and they'd sort of win that. So this season, they will be a little bit more reliant on the system, creating that consistent flurry of chances for them. But I do back them to come good eventually, but I think it will be that slow process like we mentioned.
Yeah, I agree. No team is having less shots per match than Swansea, 7.4 per 90. And on the other side of it, only Reading and Blackpool are facing more shots than Swansea at the moment. So something to solve there when it comes to that sort of possession style. Sheffield United as well. Sheffield United are 13th in shots taken per 90 table, averaging 10.6 per game. It's the quality of the shots and the chances that's really hurting them. The third worst for XG created from open play with 2.6 throughout the season. That's only 0.6 big chances per game, and they've only scored 1 goal from open play so far this season. What's going on here with Sheffield United? Is it just one of those that we see every year where a team comes down and they just struggle to kind of realign themselves? I know they're trying to play 4 at the back. They had a very clear identity last season. Is this, again, just one of those where you've got to kind of be patient?
I think that what a lot of people will point towards is Slavisa Jokanovic generally gets off to a bit of a slow start to the season. It's a bit of a slow burn sometimes, and then they eventually pick up. I think the 17-18 season, when he was promoted with Fulham, they were about 17th at the end of November, and then they just took off and flew, and they went on this unbelievable run. So Sheffield United fans will be hoping that a similar sort of thing will happen this season, and that the penny drops at some point. But my sort of worry with them at the moment is the balance in the final third. I think that on paper, they've got some very good players at this level. You know, your Sharps, your McBurneys, your Brewsters, McGoldricks, even Burt can be an option as well. But if you go back to that sort of last Fulham team that he was promoted, it was all about dynamic wingers. You know, Ryan Sessegnon really shone under him that season. But I don't really see who are the fits into this team at the moment. So it might be a bit of a case of sort of square pegged round holes in the final third, and they just have to sort of iron out those issues in the final third at the moment. But I do think they made some nice signings, but yeah, we'll see on that one.
Yeah, Hurane's just come in as well. And yeah, I think it's one of those where it's like a bad start, that's one thing, but I think it needs to change kind of quickly, because you're then getting to the stage where at any stage you can go on a run of 7-8 games where you win 6 of those. But overall, you don't want that to have to be something that you've got to achieve to get yourself back in the running. You don't want to get caught adrift. And Sheffield United should really be there and thereabouts at the end of it when it comes to the playoff places, but they need to get moving pretty soon. But the international breaks probably come at the right time. Maybe there's a centre-back in their midst that they need to give an opportunity. Speaking of which, great link, James, I spoke with Danny Wilson, who was the manager of Sheffield United. I know he was a Sheffield Wednesday legend, but he moved across Yorkshire. Well, not across Yorkshire, he stayed in Sheffield, but went to Sheffield United and became their manager back in 2010. And I had a chat with him about all sorts. And that whole interview is going to be on the League of 72 channel very, very soon. But within it, we spoke about Harry Maguire, because it was the first season of Harry Maguire. He gave him that opportunity. He played the entirety of the season, and he went on to be a very, very good player, as Man United fans, Hull City fans, and England fans will know. So here's a snippet from that interview, and we'll show you all of it on the League of 72 channel very, very soon. Check this out. Specifically with Harry Maguire, right at the start of his journey, he obviously needs that opportunity, and you were one of those people who gave him that opportunity. He actually had his debut in the season before, and as an 18-year-old for Sheffield United on their way down into League One. But what was your first impression of Harry Maguire once you kind of got your hands on him? Because I imagine you would have been told that this is a player that could be something special.
Yeah, I think it's when unfortunately when Sheffield United were relegated the 2011 season, I think it was. As you rightly said, Harry was just making his way into the team then, and from a substitute, and then a couple of games afterwards. But I think with Harry, when we got him in pre-season, we'd heard a lot about him, and obviously we knew a lot about him from the Youth Cup games that they had with Manchester United that season prior. So he was bandied about a little bit from that point of view. So we had a fair idea of what we had in front of us, but we knew he was going to be raw. And I think that getting him in pre-season, looking at him in pre-season, because he was a very, very big unit of a boy, and when you see him now, before he'd not really understood the dietary requirements of being professional and whatever, which is understandable. So all that thing had to be taken in consideration. But first and foremost, it was what ability he had. And he was training with the first team like he just belonged there, from day one. He was going to make mistakes. Listen, we always knew that that was going to be the case, and we're very forgiving, but we believed in what we could see in front of us. But what we did have as a person was a very humble young lad, very respectful to myself and to the staff. Whoever spoke to him, he was always very responsive, always tried to do what you asked him on the pitch. And you could see it literally on the pitch at times. When you've asked him to do a particular thing, he would respond to it. And as he went on, he just got stronger and stronger and got this confidence, got more belief, and started doing the things that came naturally to him.
Yeah, and we've got a clip that we'd like to show you now, actually, Danny, because Harry, does talk about you and him and his relationship, and in particular, a word that I'd like to kind of dive into a little bit more, that idea of opportunity, kind of getting it, but you've got to take it, of course, but you've got to be given it as well. And he spoke very highly of you. Let's have a look at this clip that he did in his interview with Gary Neville quite recently, but before the Euros.
You're obviously someone who's resilient and you're tough and you can obviously take criticism. I mean, your first experience at Sheffield United was to go in, I think as an 18-year-old at the end of a season where you got relegated. I mean, what must that have been like?
When I went into the team in the Championship, I went in for the last 4 or 5 games, and we was pretty much down when we went in, but I made mistakes. I can remember games when I was 18, 19, a centre-back playing in League One, making mistakes, and to be fair, this is where I give great credit to the manager, Danny Wilson. A lot of managers probably would have said, have a little rest this week, we'll bring some experience in, but every game you just play me, and I say it's a big part of where I am now.
What mistakes were you making at that sort of age, and what type of mistakes would you have been making?
The main mistakes I feel at that sort of age is concentration. I can remember playing a couple of short back passes to the keeper where you're just taking it for granted that you're just going to play it back and the concentration isn't there, or the positioning. But I had a great manager who had great faith in me. There wasn't many players playing at my age in League One at centre half and playing week in, week out, and that's a big credit to Danny.
So how does that feel to hear, one of your ex-players who's now, essentially vice captain of England, saying that about yourself?
Oh, listen, it's I feel very, very proud, to have played a little part in his career, but you have to look around at any player that's got himself to the top level. You have to have a certain type of determination and character within yourself, to push yourself and to get to the levels that you want to get. And Harry was doing that. Harry wasn't difficult to deal with. He talks about his mistakes there. They were few and far between, really. He'd get under a ball now and again. He'd miss time a header. He'd, as I said, he'd put a short back pass now and again to his goalkeeper. Or he wouldn't be. He'd lost his defender in the box. Striker in the box at some particular time. There were just minor things that you could always improve upon, and that's what he did. And not only getting better for us, when he got transferred, it seemed to every time he moved on to another club, he's got to another level, a higher level, and he's coped with it very, very well. It's a great story, really. It's a fairy tale story from it's not rags to riches sort of thing, but that type of scenario, and he's only got himself to pat on the back, really. Yeah, he's had a bit of help, but you have to be determined in yourself to want to push yourself to the limits that top players do. And Harry's got that determination. He's got the humility to get there as well. But he's also got a determination, and he's got so many different attributes that go with being able to be captain and be responsible for the England and Manchester United teams.
Absolutely love chatting to Danny Wilson there. Like I said, the full interview, if you don't want to miss it, we're chatting up, really diving into actually Maguire and his career. And this is the kind of stuff, Ben, isn't it, that we kind of like about the EFL, is that you get to see these players kind of make their way through. And it's almost like, I think it's like finding the band before they become big. Like you kind of like, you saw them before, when they were real people, before they got all the money and the fame. And that's what Danny Wilson was able to do there with Harry Maguire. So make sure you don't miss out on that interview. We've got some great interviews at the moment. One with Gary Rowett, one with Liam Rossini. We've got a very, very exciting Sheffield United manager coming on the channel very, very soon. Not the current one, a former one. You can figure out who that might be. So another reason to subscribe. And I think we're nearly at 9K subs as well. So make sure you subscribe to the channel for that reason alone. Let's answer some of your comments. Here we go. So BCFC Fan TV. Hello, my friend. Deeney and Chong will tear the league apart. It's a statement. It's not really a question. Do you agree with that, Ben? Do you see them? Who are your playoff teams at the moment? If I can put you on the spot.
I think at the start of the season, I had each of the relegated clubs in there. So I'm banking on sort of Sheffield United coming good here. I had Middlesbrough up there, had QPR up there, and one more I had up there as well. It'll come to me. Bournemouth as well, who I think will also be decent this season. But we could see another one pushing on the door. Someone like a Birmingham, why not?
Okay, not Preston then.
Maybe we'll see how these new signings get on. I'm a bit pessimistic about our chances this season.
Your people need you, Ben. Come on. We'll move on. Well, yeah, I mean that's a fair statement. Chong and Dean, they could link up pretty nicely, couldn't they? QPR Forever, good name. Would have preferred to give Sinclair Armstrong, who's a youngster at QPR, a chance, to be honest. But let's see how Gray does. Look, I think it's one of those. We've also got a striker called Charlie Kelman, who's just gone to Gillingham on loan. It's going to be interesting to see how he goes and does for them. We bought him from Southend. I think it's one of those where, 3 strikers, in the entirety of a squad, is probably not enough on its own. So I think you could still maybe find some moments for Sinclair Armstrong to sort of get some minutes and get some opportunities. And the way that QPR normally do it is they send those players out on loan as well. So I think in terms of long-term development, especially for a team that's trying to get into the playoff places, having another guy like Gray is very good for us. Evil Spirit 2001. What do you think of Middlesbrough's recruitment? Now, Ben, I'm not expecting you to know it off by heart, so don't worry, I've got it in front of me. Joe Lumley. These are the outs. Sorry, hang on. Where am I? I'm on QPR. Here we go. I'll find it. Here we go. It's coming. Bear with. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. So the ins include Piero, Ikpiatsu, Joe Lumley. See, that's what I got done. I thought Joe Lumley was going to be it. Sol Bamba coming in, Luke Daniels, Sammy Amiobi, Matt Crooks. How do you feel about their recruitment this year? Very Warnock-esque, isn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah, that's what I think. It's a bit of a mix of everything, really. You've sort of got those players who are like tried and tested at this level, Ikpiatsu and Crooks, but you've also got a bit of flair that's been added on in there this season. Very excited to see how Peiro gets on this season, and Onel Hernandez, who came in on loan as well. A couple of promotions with Norwich under his belt. They had Balassi there last season, who did quite well in spells as well. So yeah, under Neil Warnock there, he's certainly got the ingredients to knit together a good side this season.
I agree. So there you have it. Yeah, I think that I put them 5th in my prediction, so I think they'll be up there. And I think they've only strengthened, so I think they're always very, very difficult to play against. And QPR Forever's back again. James, when are we seeing Mr. Benjamin Bloom on here? Well, Benjamin, we're calling you out. Get yourself on the show ASAP. Okay, we're big fans of Benjamin Bloom at League of 72, so we will have him on. I'm sure he wouldn't deny you guys, so he'll be here soon enough, I'm sure. From one Ben to another. Ben, thank you so much, mate, for spending a bit of time with me. We'll have to get you on again. It's been an absolute joy chatting to you about the championship. We've got to move on. We've got to move on to Leagues 1 and 2, I'm afraid. We can't be talking about championship all day long. But thank you very much, mate. And for anyone who doesn't know about Ben's channel, go and check it out. Ben HD. Search it on YouTube. Go check out his stuff. It's wonderful. Thanks for chatting to me, mate. I'll speak to you soon. He's gone. Of course he has. Let's move on to League One. He understands that these are the things that we've got to do. But before we do that, let's introduce our next guest, our League 1 and 2 expert, Edward Walker. I'm going to call you Ed, though. Is that all right, Ed?
That's absolutely fine with me.
That's fine. That's good. Right, let's dive into this then, because we've got lots to get through. We're going to go through some of the big deadline day deals and, of course, have a bit of a roundup on both of the divisions as well. Let's look at the weekend results in League 1. One that did stand out for me, Charlton getting a victory against Crewe. I think they really, really needed that. And Crewe, it feels like it's getting a bit tricky for them. We'll talk about them in just a second when it comes to the biggest loss of the season. Get involved in the chat for your signings of the summer and your biggest loss of the summer in League 1. Ed's put forward his, which we'll talk about in a second. But at the top, if we look at the table now, we can see that Sunderland, that's right, Sunderland are top of the tree. I think Sunderland and Sheffield Wednesday, I thought we thought might be up there, but actually it's probably been a bit of a surprise. Ed, great win for them against Wickham, who I think another team that I've tipped them to sort of be right up there at the end of the season. I'm quite impressed with the recruitment that they've put together. Their average gates as well so far, 29,995, which is absolutely incredible. That's a real statement of intent, that victory against Wickham, wasn't it, Ed?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone who beats this Wickham team this year should make a big deal out of it. Really, really good result. Great performance as well from Ross Stewart, who really seems to be filling that void that was left by Charlie Wyke after his very good season last year. They're really hoping that he becomes the number 9 to Thunder goals, and so far he's made a really impressive start.
Yes. He's bettered his tally from last year already. 3 league goals last season. He's already on 4 from 5 games. And he offers something very different, a lot more mobile than than Charlie Wyke. That's something that I think everyone was probably a bit. I was looking at it, was going, you can't lose that many goals and kind of recover from it. But the sort of front four, Embleton as well, we saw in the highlights there, scoring a cracker for them. You know, you've got Gooch, you've got McGeady still tearing it up in League One, and then Ross Stewart. That's a really lovely four that they've got there of hard-working players with a bit of movement there. And can you see Ross Stewart kind of equaling that tally of Charlie Wyke this season? 26 for him last year. Can you see Ross doing the same?
I think it'd be wrong to expect him from. I certainly hope he can get enough goals to win the games. That'd be the priority for me. You mentioned that front line there, fantastic. I love that they're getting Elliot Embleton involved after he was out on loan last year. I mean, this is the team that brings Alec Pritchard off the bench. That's the amount of quality they've got in forward areas. I can't believe Alex Pritchard is a bench player in League One.
Yeah, that's
incredible.
Is outrageous. That is yeah, and Luke O'Nien in there as well is a really good player for this division as well, for sure. Let's move on. Charlie Wyke, of course, left Sunderland and went to Wigan. Wigan, though, after what has been an absolute stinker of a run of 5 games that you've got to play in terms of the fixtures, got themselves a great victory against Pompey. They've got themselves 10 points, I think it is, so far this season. Only 1 loss from the opening 5 games. This is a tough game against the Portsmouth side that some people were kind of waiting to see, are they going to sort of turn up this year in a very, very difficult league. The only defeats that they've had so far, Sunderland, a 2-1 defeat. We see them up there. Wickham with a 1-1 draw as well. They beat the likes of Charlton Athletic this year. I think they play Sheffield Wednesday this season as well. Really, really tough games for them. And they're very, very solid at the back, aren't they? 3 clean sheets so far this season. What have you been most impressed about when it comes to Wigan?
I'd say the noticeable improvement compared to last year. You look at the state they were last year. They pulled off the survival when it was probably a bit against the odds. Fantastic work from Liam Richardson that's given him the permanent job. And they seem to have invested quite well in a squad that can challenge for promotion. I think that's a very good result against Portsmouth, who had really good defensive solidity at the start. And a goal from Callum Lang, who I still can't believe is 22 years old. He seems to have been in football for about 10 years.
Yeah, I had him in a Football Manager save and he was absolutely wonderful. And they made me sell him and it very much upset me. Will Keane in there as well, Charlie Wyke. They've, Jordan Cousins as well, which is interesting. He's probably he's one of those players who's probably, I'm not sure if he's good enough for the Championship technically. Obviously, he was at QPR, Stoke City last season as well. But in terms of, sort of energy, being able to kind of break down teams and opposition, he's a really great player for them to have this year. Ben Amos as your goalkeeper as well. It's a much better squad. They've been able to obviously throw a bit of a check at it, but they're in good form, aren't they? And I think if they're getting off to a start like this, inevitably they're going to have some easy games down the road. And they've not actually conceded a goal from open play yet this season. And that's huge. It's only been from 2 set pieces and the other being a penalty as well. So a great start for them. Right, Ed, this is the one I really want to talk about. Here we go. Ipswich. What is going on here? So much to unpack. Let's talk about on the pitch first in terms of the results so far. Somehow haven't won a game yet. 3 draws, 2 losses. A 2-2 draw against Wimbledon. Wes Burns here getting the penalty and Piggott putting it away. So many. I mean, we're going to get into the amount of signings they've got. What's going on the pitch?
I think they're shooting themselves in the foot a bit, to be honest. They've clearly got so much ability, but you see some of the goals they're conceding as well. They seem so preventable, especially this one here. This late equaliser from ASC Wimbledon, for sure. Their goalkeepers haven't particularly been that good. I mean, they brought in Blacklab Cladke from Salford, who was the standout goalkeeper in League Two last season. He seems to have been struggling a bit. They've brought in Christian Walton potentially to be a first choice ahead of him for the rest of the season. But there's so many signings in there. I think you have to look at the number and think it's going to take time to gel. Any team that makes that many additions, and they've had a high number of clear-outs as well, so it's a complete squad overhaul. That kind of thing doesn't change overnight.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the quality that's come in is pretty. I mean, it's pretty special. We can show you all the signings right now, and it is 19. I repeat, that's 19 signings, and some really, really great players here. Like Lee Evans to bring in League One is a stand-up signing, if I can do a pun on a comedian. Raheem Harper, unbelievable signing. Macaulay Bunn has been scoring, but has only come in and been on loan. But basically, anyone on that list for me are players that I would go, League One, I'll have them. Is there? Are you? The problem, I guess, is going to be what's the starting 11? Because you can't fit 19 players into 11, can you? There's a fact there. There you go. A bit of insight from me.
Yeah, there's some immense competition in that team for sure. A lot of good options. I look at Connor Chaplin coming in and George Edmondson up from Rangers, who was playing Europa League in the past. And I think, what are you two doing in League One? It's absolutely unreal to see some of the players they've been able to pull in.
Yeah, and I think for the harmony of the squad, I think that's going to be interesting as well, because you're naturally, if you're not winning games, people that are sitting on the bench, they're naturally going to go, well, hang on a minute, can I play? I've only just got here. But we're getting to Ipswich a little bit more in terms of one player that they brought in on deadline day. But we do want to just quickly highlight Morecambe. Well done, Morecambe. They are flying. I want to get your thoughts on this. To beat Sheffield Wednesday was a record attendance. They're currently 14th. Cole Stockton, top scorer in the division as well. All of those stats for Morecambe fans to hear that right now after 5 games is a really, really encouraging start from them. Do you think they can keep this up?
I think they can. I think they're taken to this league like a duck to water. They're a team that were in League Two for well over a decade. They were always kind of written off as being one of those expected to be down the bottom. A lot of things changed when Jim Bentley moved and Derek Adams came in towards the second half of the season before last. And it's gone up from there. He did wonders to get that promotion with them last season. They came into this new campaign with Derek Adams moving on, but bringing in Stephen Robinson, doing some very solid investment, getting some really exciting midfielders to me in Adam Phillips and Calmont in particular, two who really impressed me in League Two last season. And they're not here to just make up the numbers. They clearly want to have a go, and I think they'll surprise a lot of teams this season.
Yeah, Anderson in goal, doing really well for them. And I can never say his name.
Diagaraga.
Good Lord. I apologise. Diagaraga. I remember seeing at Brentford, always thought he was a really, really good player. So I think he's a good guy to kind of get on the ball and calm it down, but also win the ball back for them as well, in a team that's going to have to defend quite often, which they did in that Sheffield Wednesday game. Let's concentrate on 3 players then. We're going to go back to Ipswich here because, of course, they signed someone on deadline day. Another player that so we disagree on this. I'm amazed he's in this division. He's come from Dijon and struggled there. People will know Bersant Salina from his time at Ipswich initially, and then he was at Swansea where he did do pretty well for them. He was at Man City initially on loan for both these. Here's a goal from his time at Ipswich when he was on loan there. But last season, 25 games, no goals, 5 assists. But when he was at Swansea, he really did. He's one of those players when you see the opposition play against you, he does catch the eye because he has got that quality about him. But you're not sure he's going to hit the ground running. I think he could tear up this division.
No, I think there might have been a bit of mix-up. I actually think he's going to be great. I'm really excited about it. No, I think there was a bit of a mix-up. I'm really, really excited about this. We see, Chelina was back at Ipswich. I think it was the 17-18 season, which wasn't a great season to them, but he really proved popular with some of the goals, including that free kick against Burton Albion, which definitely has broken my heart in the past. I definitely don't think about that. I don't like seeing that on repeat every now and then. But I'm really curious about where he's going to feature, because I think he's someone who can be quite effective out wide or quite effective in number 10 position. They've got a lot of people in those positions. So I'd love to see where he's going to fit in this team. But it's a really, really exciting sign to the level.
Yeah, I find it. He really should. Like, you're going to have him, Raheem Harper in there. The list goes on and on and on. But he really should be tearing it up for me. And I think that's something that maybe for a team that's struggling for chemistry, to have a guy who is just a bit of a live wire, who can kind of do it on his own at times, that might kind of allow you to kind of creep back and get your confidence back a little bit. They've played 4-2-3-1 generally this season, so I think they'll kind of continue with that, and he'll be on the left side or the right side and have a bit of a free role, which I think has got to be exciting for Ipswich fans. And surely, with all those great players that you brought in, you should be able to kind of get yourself going again. I think the international break's probably a good one for you. One player who we know has been in the lower leagues for a little while, Will Griggs on fire. Well, he hasn't been for a couple of seasons. He only scored 8 goals last year. He was at MK Dons. I think he scored 4 goals in one match, actually. It was only in 52 minutes against Swindon. He's gone to Rotherham. Still only 30. Can he still do it? Is he a top, is he a top 6 striker in League One still?
I believe there's the potential for him to be it, certainly. You think about Will Grigg to me in League One, and I think back to that amazing Wigan season he had and the chant that came out, and he got into the Northern Ireland squad for the Euros. And then he had that really high profile, quite expensive to the level move to Sunderland, which I think you probably have to say just hasn't worked out the way people hoped it would. He went to MK Dons last season. I thought he had a pretty productive loan spell during his time there. And I can see this being a nice fit at Rotherham. I think of him potentially alongside Michael Smith, who is a player I consider to be one of the best at the level as a centre forward. There could be a really productive partnership from those two. And I think this could be a good move to work for all parties.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's a good point in terms of Smith up there with him, because I think there is space again with. I've said it a few times in the show recently. It's something I'm sure we're going to dive into a bit more detail over the weeks on League of 72 Live. Is that those sort of back threes and the different formations that teams are playing now? When you do that, there's sometimes there is a bit more room for a sort of second striker of two players up there, and so for Rotherham, that might be a road that they want to go down to get both of them on the pitch. So that's going to be interesting. And finally, another player who's, I guess, wants a bit of a renaissance. It's Burundi international, Saido Berahino. Of course, we know the name. Saw him at Stoke City. Saw him at West Brom. This is him scoring a goal, of course, for West Brom. Again, one of those who, and there's a few of these. We're speaking about Ravel Morrison the other week as well. Players are kind of getting that reprieve, that new chance. And Sheffield Wednesday were a little bit light in terms of strikers. They brought in Lee Gregory. But this is one which I guess, you're going to struggle to give me an answer, aren't you, in terms of if this should work or not. But it's worth a punt, isn't it, I would say?
I'm really excited about this deal, but I'm also really unsure about it. I think it's the best way to summarise it. Berahino was treated as such this amazing talent years back now when he was a lot younger at West Bromwich Albion. It hasn't happened in one way or another. He's spent time out in Belgium before he made the move back over to Sheffield Wednesday. I'm excited about the fact he's working back under Darren Moore, someone he's familiar with. They have had Lee Gregory, Sheffield Wednesday, who started the season well. They can get Berahino firing as well. This could be a very, very good season for the Owls.
Yeah, absolutely. Second in league already, looking good defensively, but yeah, looking for that little bit more firepower up front. Patterson got injured recently. I'm not sure how long he's out for, but yeah, just have that little bit more could be good for them. Only 10 goals in 2 years in Belgium, but he was a bit of a bit part player for them. Only 46 minutes per game last season, so hopefully he can hit the ground running. You're right, Darren Moore. That's a really good point. Maybe he can put his arm around him and get him feeling good, because I remember seeing him back in the day, and he's really talented. He's got that kind of Ian Wright vibe about him as a striker. I think he's a good player. There's a good player in there if they can find him. And League One, it'll be interesting to see how he copes with that division. And one final one, Sam Lavelle, this one that caught your eye, from Morecambe to Charlton, made the move. This is, when you kind of drill down into this with Sam Lavelle, this is a really smart move from Charlton, isn't it?
Yeah, Sam Lavelle's been one of my favourite centre-backs at lower league level for a long time. He's an absolute warrior in a hard defence. You don't captain Morecambe at the age he was without having something special about them. And it's always felt like a move to League One was on the cards. He ended up getting it with Morecambe getting the promotion anyway. So to progress onto Charlton now, they've got a fantastic option in centre-back positions and a real determined defender, which I think will have a great campaign.
Yeah. Signing of the summer then. We asked you guys as well. And we've got a few comments we're going to read out from you guys in just a second. But Ed, who's your signing of the whole of the summer? Of course, there's deadline day, but what about it in its entirety?
Well, it's a bit left field. Might not be what people expect, but I think Sam Vokes at Wycombe Wanderers could be amazing. You think about how Wycombe play, they're not exactly a possession-oriented side. They rarely do passing sequences together. But Sam Vokes just feels like the right kind of striker to fit into that system. He's coming in under a manager, Gareth Ainsworth, who is known for getting the best out of players that maybe others have discarded and not considered up to level anymore. He's already made a really good start to this campaign. And I think if Wycombe are going to challenge for a return to the Championship at the first attempt, his goals are going to play a really crucial part in that.
Yes, I love this shout. I think I completely agree with you. I think he could, because also, you've got, say you want to pick a player from Ipswich, there's so many, you're not sure if they're actually going to start. Whereas Sam Vokes and that squad, he also has quite a sort of tight squad, because Wycombe don't have the money to go and buy loads of players. Him and McCleary look really interesting up top together. And in terms of biggest loss of the summer, who are you going for there?
Well, it's not just one player for me. I think it's a whole club. It would have to be Charlie Kirk leaving Crewe Alexandra. Crewe came up from League Two a couple of seasons ago with a very special crop of homegrown players, as they're known for producing. And unfortunately, we've seen the majority of that talented crop move on to other clubs. Perrin G's gone in the past, Harry Pickering's gone, you've seen Ryan Whittle depart, and you've seen Charlie Kirk move on to another club as well. And it's a real shame to see Crewe lose that kind of ability, because I don't think they're really the kind of club that would buy the replacements or sign them. They'd look to produce them themselves, and it could leave them in a really sticky situation with those quality now elsewhere.
Okay. I want to make sure we get to League Two and give it a bit of time, but we have got some quick fire questions for you. So in a sentence, or as close as you can get, Ed, I'm going to chuck these at you if that's okay. First of all, Jay Hancock 44, thoughts on Portsmouth's window? We've completely redeveloped the squad with freebies and loans, whilst also redeveloping our style under the Cowleys. Do you agree?
Yeah, I've been encouraged by Portsmouth's start. I was a bit unsure about them before the season began, but the defensive solidity early on was really good. I'm really keen to see how they do under the Cowleys this season for sure.
Nice. Captain Nat, Wednesday's forward three of Shadipo, Gregory and Windass, when all fit, should be awesome this season. That's a great point. Reese, ITFC, I presume that's Ipswich Town. King, Bursant, Selena, signing of the season. I think it is a shout if he's playing loads and loads of minutes, which surely he will do. And Jacob Plum, is automatic promotion too ambitious for Oxford? What do you think, Ed?
Well, this League One season is the most chaotic I can think of for years, to be honest. I think there's a lot of teams that realistically see themselves as being able to compete for the top six, potentially with an automatic promotion. I quite like what Oxford have done. I really like the signing of Herbie Kane, who was someone I first became really aware with the Doncaster Rovers. Really good, deep line midfielder. Excited by that signing as well. Is it too ambitious? I don't think you could say so at this early stage. They've started the season pretty well, which is different to what I remember from the last campaign, where they were almost playing catch-up for quite a lot of that campaign. So to start this one strong is really encouraging.
Okay, dare to dream. Let's move on to League Two. The weekend's results are in front of you right now. Some big victories, some surprises in there as well as we look to round it up. Because from the top 5 teams in the league, and we can show you the league table now, it's interesting. So 4 of the top 5 didn't win, dropping points. In particular, those top 3. The big story, I think, was Forest Green losing to Port Vale. Very interesting. The goals were on the 6th minute and the 9th minute. I think the question for me, for you, Ed, is with FGR, is this just a sort of one of those days where a couple of early goals and then you're able to kind of suffocate them a little bit, or is there something to be concerned about with Forest Green, because they do concede, don't they?
Yeah, this is a fantastic result for Port Vale. I think it's a bit of an off day for FGR. They were without Udoka Godwin Malik, who's one of my favourite defenders at this level. Really good right-sided defender in their back 3, and they didn't have Evo Adams, as I recall correctly, as well, because of a red card. When that team's full strength, they're going to be a handful for anyone this season, and I think if you beat them, it's a really good result, like Port Vale did there.
Yeah, I think they're going to be entertainers as well. 13 goals so far this season. They've conceded 8, which I think is the 3rd worst. I think there's only Bristol Rovers and Crawley who've conceded more than them, and that's for the team top of the table. So that's pretty exciting for them. The team that is in 2nd at the moment, is 3rd place now, is Bradford. They lost to Orient, and Bradford under Derek Adams have looked good as we expected, but Orient are a bit too much. What a strike that is, by the way. Absolutely,
I love that goal.
But it was the physicality of Harry Smith up front for Orient proved to be a bit too much to handle. Here he's getting himself a goal as well from outside the box. The goalkeeper would be a little bit gutted with that one. But what was interesting with this one, we were looking at the numbers, was Jan Songo, who plays for Bradford, taken from Morecambe, defensive midfielder. If you look at Harry Smith, he sort of sat on him or sort of dropped deeper. He had 33 aerial duels and he won 19 of them. Jan Songo had 20 and won 7. So I think that was using his physicality to get him behind and him get himself a goal was a good response for them after losing to Harrogate. Orient 6th place at the moment, and I think both them and Bradford you would expect to be in the top 6 maybe come the end of the season. Orient are kind of they're sort of flirting with it, aren't they? Sort of some good moments, some not so good moments. But Harry Smith is going to have to score some goals if they are going to get in that top 6, right, Ed?
Yeah, Leighton Orient, I think, are a project in process. I really like the Kenny Jackett appointment. I think he's an excellent manager to come in at this level. Yeah, you look at Harry Smith for the goals. I look at Aaron Drinan as well, who's coming from Ipswich Town. You've got the young Ruel Satiria, who I really like. He's a Cypriot youth international as well to be excited about. There's the potential for them to compete this season for sure. Yeah,
I agree. Harrogate are 2nd in division, got themselves a draw against Exeter. Of course, what's interesting here, I think, is the fact that there was a sending off here, I think, for Exeter early on. So they weren't able to get the victory, which would have been a shame for them. Because if they were able to get themselves those 2 extra points, they would have been joint top with a game in hand at this early stage. What I kind of wanted to talk about here was the fact that you've got them in 2nd. You've got Hartlepool in 5th. Hartlepool came up last year. Harrogate came up 2 seasons ago. Is there something in that? We're kind of looking at themes of different clubs and different divisions. What is that gap, do you think, between the National League and League Two? Is it a big jump? Because it seems like some of the teams are doing okay.
It's not a big gap at all. It's one of a lot of clubs. As far as I'm aware, no team has ever been relegated straight back down after coming up to non-league. And I'd hope that trend can continue this season with Sutton Hartlepool having good campaigns. And you've seen in the past, there's been examples of teams that have come out of the National League and gone straight up into League One. It's a gap that a lot of teams can manage. And if you handle your finances quite well, you're going to be better than a lot of other teams in this division anyhow.
Let's have a look. I don't know if we could look at the league table one last time, because what's interesting is down the bottom, it kind of, you could argue either way when we're talking about this sort of gap from the bottom teams to the top teams, because of course you've got Bristol Rovers down there, who you just never would have expected. A bit like Ipswich, it's a bit confusing to see them down there. And then of course Sutton United, who have got promoted. It's their first season in the Football League, struggling, unable to get a victory as of yet. Let's start off with Bristol Rovers, Ed. A 1-1 draw with Barrow. Barrow had a red card in the first half of this game as well. They've currently only scored 4 goals so far this season, and they've just signed Leon Clark, which could be, I mean, he should be a real good goal scorer in League Two, and maybe him and Aaron Collins up front, a bit of a partnership there. Aaron Collins did very well at Forest Green Rovers with Jamil Matt as a 2 up top. But what do you think's going wrong here with Bristol Rovers? Is this an element where with Ipswich, you know, or teams that kind of come down and feel like big teams who've spent a lot of money, that it's kind of a bit of a cup final for the opposition at times?
I'm not sure as much about that. I think with Bristol Rovers, I'm not quite sure what their style of play is and whether the players are fully integrated into a certain system yet. You look at the trio deadline day signs they had. Leon Clark is an interesting one at his age. They brought in Junior Brown as a sort of left wing back option because they've been using Harry Anderson out there, who's a bit more of a winger for me than a wing back, certainly in this formation that they play. I think there's a lot of quality in this Bristol Rovers squad, particularly I look at Aaron Collins or Sam Nicholson, 2 kind of attacking midfielders who can play in striker areas as well to have really crucial campaigns.
Yeah, you got Brett Pittman there as well. So really, kind of Aaron Collins should be sort of still being able to kind of get them moving in the right direction. Joey Barton, of course, will be trying to do that after the international break. And those final 2 teams down the bottom there, Oldham getting a last-minute win. This is great against Sutton. Obviously, not great for Sutton at all. This was the first game, of course, for Sutton at their home ground after they'd had to get their pitch relayed. But it was the sort of last bit. So it's Pierre Gianni who scored the equaliser. And then Luamba, after a sort of counter-attack, Sutton were down the other end. And Luamba, the youngster, Junior Luamba, scoring a last-minute winner. Absolute scenes, just the limbs we're after. Really big for Oldham there, who had Faisal Patash making his debut, who's on loan from Queen's Park Rangers. Just a quick word on Oldham and Sutton. I think Oldham, you would imagine they would be hoping for a mid-table finish, maybe even a gentle dalliance. But of course, there's so much stuff going on off the pitch. But for Sutton, how concerned are you with Sutton? Because they've been 2 draws from the opening 4 matches, but they haven't got that win yet. They need to get that soon, don't they?
I'm not too worried about Sutton. I mean, they've had quite hardship. They've been beaten by Forest Green in the final minutes. They've been beaten by Oldham Athletic in the final minutes. They've recently brought in some new additions that I think can make them really good. And Matt Gray and the team he has there, I think will pull out of trouble. It's just a matter of getting that first win. It's a bit like Ipswich Town in League One. You kind of think that first win will bring in the confidence that needs to get them out of trouble.
Okay, let's stick with Sutton when we look at some of the signings on deadline day. We can show you a still of a lot of the signings that happened on the day itself. Again, look at that right side column. There's no money changing hands at the moment. Some interesting ones, some loans from some of those bigger clubs. You got Jake Kane, Liverpool going to Newport. Jordan Stevens going from Leeds to Barrow. Dominic Revan going from Aston Villa to Northampton Town. But there's a 3, as I said, we're going to stick with Sutton United because Isaac Oloafe, I'm struggling with my names today, aren't I? Really, I'm struggling. He returns for his second spell at Sutton. The Millwall loanee returns to the club, having scored 14 in 37 for them last season. Just what they need, isn't it? You know, goals are going to keep them up in the division. And like you say, it's been tight with a few of those games. So if you can turn those draws into wins, he could be a real sort of breath of fresh air for them, couldn't he?
Yeah, I believe his nickname is Tanto. It's one of the nicknames he's been given because of his name. It's actually his 3rd spell, I found out recently. He originally went to Sutton United in sort of early 2020 from Millwall, went on loan up to St Johnstone in Scotland, didn't have that much success, was recalled, went to Sutton last season, played a huge influence part in them winning the National League title and getting into the Football League for the first time. They know what he's like. They know what he brings in those forward positions, and I think he could have a really good impact for them up top.
Yes. This is one we spoke about him last week. We were like, look, get this guy signed up. This guy will get you goals. Work hard, play hard. Nicky Maynard is back in League Two. Tranmere, they love an experienced striker. Last year, David Nugent James Vaughan, are at the club. Big parts of the squad. Maynard, look, we know he's a bit older, but you can see with some of these finishes that he can score goals. And Tranmere have struggled to score goals, haven't they, so far?
Yeah, they've definitely scored. That was the big question with Tranmere during the summer, really, following the quite surprising announcement of James Vaughan's retirement, really. Where did they find that goal scorer? Because he was fantastic last year. 18 goals in the league, one extra added into the playoffs as well. Replacing that goal scorer has been hard, and there's a sense with the forwards they already had there that there wasn't quite that same with Emmanuel Desirue or Elliot Nevitt or even Paul Glatzel. Nicky Maynard could be that, and I think the emphasis is probably on could. We know he's not what the player he used to be. He did okay at Newport. He had a good impact, particularly with that very late goal in the playoffs, of course, at Forest Green. I hope this works out, because if Tranmere have a goal scorer, they could be everything they need to go for a promotion push this season.
True, and you wonder if, maybe that bit of quality with Callum McManaman and Maynard up top, maybe those two can link up, could work out for them, get them up the league. And one final one, Jack Diamond going to Harrogate from Sunderland, academy player who was at Harrogate in the National League when they went up. He scored in the final at Wembley, the 3-1 victory that got them into the EFL for the very first time. Going to offer some sort of wing play, I would imagine. Really tricky here, direct as well. Doesn't score too many goals, but can play across the front line. I think this is a great one for Harrogate as well, isn't it? They seem very well run, Harrogate Town. You've got a good solid squad there, and to bring in a player who played as many games as he did last season for Sunderland into League Two, this is a really exciting one, do you think?
Yeah, Harrogate have all been about continuity. Their manager's been there since 2009. Their owner, his dad, has been there since 2011. And they've really had this really impressive progression up the non-league pyramid since turning professional back in 2018. Jack Diamond, of course, as you said, was a big part of that National League promotion winning side from a couple of years ago. I think he would probably be playing for Sunderland if Sunderland hadn't made some of the additions they had right now. So to have him back in League Two as a wide option, as opposed to maybe Simon Power, a young Irish winger, or maybe George Thompson, some excellent delivery from the sides. And you look at some of the forwards they have, particularly Aaron Martin, who was one of the most aerially dominant forwards in the league last season. It could be a really good combination for Harrogate.
Okay, exciting times for Harrogate Town. Final question for Ed, and then we're going to have a look at the fixtures for the week for the weekend. Of course, there are some, not too, but none in the Championship, League One, League Two. Signing of the summer, Ed, in League Two. Who are you going for?
He's not that much of a new signing because he was there previously, but I'm going with Andy Cook at Bradford City. He was a player who was at Mansfield Town this time last season, went on loan to Bradford during the January window, had an incredibly productive loan spell during his time there, and they brought him in permanently over the summer. He's the kind of centre forward I think Derek Adams loves to use, a real complete player, got a very complete game to him. He scored what was actually a perfect hat-trick, as you can see here, against Stevenage earlier in the season. He's not likely to be the top scorer, I don't think, this season. I don't think Bradford's style of playing to Derek Adams will really get that many goals out of him, but there could be enough goals to fire them into the promotion that they're craving so much this season.
Okay, so there you have it. That is Ed's choice for signing of the summer in League Two. Let us know who yours is. Let's wrap up by having a look at some of the fixtures this weekend. Then let's go to League One. Not too many, but they're pretty juicy games, actually. You've got Cheltenham Town against MK Dons, Accrington Stanley against Shrewsbury Town, AFC Wimbledon against Oxford United. That should be an absolute cracker. AFC Wimbledon loving a sort of a high-scoring draw at the moment, so that might be the one to go for. And Bolton Wanderers against your very own Burton Albion. How are you feeling about that fixture?
It depends how they play, to be honest. I
depends what the result is, isn't it?
Saw them in the recent one. I saw them in the recent game against Cheltenham Town, and I thought if they come like that against Bolton, it could be a problem. Bolton have really taken this division well. I felt like they were going to be the one out of the four promoted sides from League Two that were going to do the strongest. They already had a quality squad as it is, and adding in someone like Josh Sheehan, who's such a great technical midfielder. He's part of the Welsh squad at the minute in League One, which I think says a lot about him. That could be a really interesting game. I'm hopefully going to be able to go to that and see what happens, and I'm excited about it.
Okay, well, so yeah, keep an eye out for that one, guys. Let's have a look at the League Two fixtures as well. A lot more here. Bradford City versus Walsall. Exeter versus Forest Green Rovers. Could be an interesting one. See how they can bounce back. Forest Green after losing that one. Stevenage versus Swindon Town, who are having a good start to the season. Bristol Rovers, really big one for them at home. They need to be winning that against Crawley Town, I would imagine. Crawley Town not having the best of starts under Jim Yems. Colchester United versus Sutton United. Sutton trying to get off the mark in terms of wins. Newport County versus Leyton Orient. Northampton Town versus Scunthorpe United. Got victory last week. Carlisle United versus Salford City. Good 3-0 win for them last week. Tranmere Rovers versus Hartlepool United. Oldham Athletic against Barrow, Port Vale versus Rochdale, and Mansfield versus Harrogate Town. I think it's that bottom one for me. Would you say that could be two of the playoff teams at the end of it, Mansfield versus Harrogate Town?
Well, you look at things early on, you'd probably say that with Harrogate and Mansfield. Mansfield have been quite underachievers, I'd have to say, at League Two level for the last couple of seasons. They've been given high expectations and not done it. But under Nigel Clough, it does feel like they've built a very complete squad and one that could definitely compete with the top teams. They're going to have to beat someone like Harrogate to get there, certainly. With the strength they've had, they've really adapted to life in the EFL really well last season and could really kick on this campaign.
Absolutely. Ed, it's been an absolute joy to listen to your knowledge. Thank you so much for joining me, mate. Hopefully we'll get you on again soon so we can enjoy that once again. Have a cracking weekend. I hope Burton do all right. I'm not going to say win because I don't want to anger the Bolton Wanderers fans. But yeah, I hope you have a cracking weekend, my friend. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Ben HD, thank you so much for getting involved in the show as well. And we hit 9K today. So thank you, everyone who's subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. Make sure you hit the notification bell. The reason you want to do that is so that you don't miss the live show every single Thursday, 4 p.m. Simple as that. Every Thursday, 4 p.m. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified, of course, when we go live. Let us know what you think about the live show, some of the big games this weekend, and who won the transfer window. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like the stream as well, and we will see you next week. Thanks for watching. See you soon.